As coaches and parents, we want the best for our players and our kids. We want the best for their development. We want to accelerate their development. And one common and well-known way to do that is with one-to-one sessions. Now, one-to-one sessions are basically when you have one player to one coach, as opposed to 20 or 15 players to one coach like you would in a group session or a team session. Benefits of one-to-one sessions are, of course, you get more attention to detail, the sessions are more intense, and you get more contact time with that coach. What I want to do for you today is to identify, show, and showcase to you the best one-to-one sessions, or what to expect from one-to-one sessions, that are the most effective for your child or your player's development. The first thing you want to do is have a plan or tailor-make a regime or program for that particular player. And we're going to do that by gathering information. So the first thing you're going to do is communicate to gather your information. How are you going to get information? The first thing you're going to do is communicate. You're going to go on the phone to the parent and ask them, what does your child need to work on? Do they need to work on their shooting, their passing, their dribbling? Why is it that you've come to me, or why is it that you request or you require one-to-one sessions? That's the first thing you're going to do. When you sign up to Be The Active Sport with Coach Kieran, we have a conversation, that same conversation where we identify what needs to be worked on, but also we discover your goals through the form you fill out, when you book sessions with us, and it says, what are your goals? Typically, the goals might be, I want to get into my school team, I want to captain my school team, I want to get into a particular grassroots team, I want to get into a team's development center, or of course an academy, or a professional football team. Typically with my academy players, they have skill-based goals. So I want to get better with my back foot receives, I want to get better with my ball mastery, my step overs need to be sharper, my feet need to be better, I want to get better technically, which is a very common thing I hear or I receive. So the first thing you're going to do is ask them. The second thing you're going to do is get them to fill out a form. What do you need to work? So you've got it in writing. And you need it in writing. I'm going to tell you why soon. After that now, on your first session, so you filled out your forms, you had your conversation, you're on your first session, you're going to put them in a simulation that allows you to use guided discovery. Now, guided discovery is when you don't overcoach, you just ask them to do a task and you see. You're almost having a diagnostics, you're seeing what needs to be worked on. So, for instance, what I like to do is put my players in a box, 10 by 10 box, and say, freestyle in this box. Show me your skills and touches, your tricks, flicks, turns, keep the ball on the ground. And then you'll see maybe the L turn is not right because the foot placement. You might see the curve turn is not right because the hips are not twisting around. You might see certain things that are not working, or why certain things don't work as well as that client wants them to work. So you're going to have a diagnostics. So now you've gathered information. You've asked them what needs to be worked on. You've asked them to write down what needs to be worked on, and you've seen what needs to be worked on. And then from that information, you're going to write a report. Because you've written down, or you've got them to write down what needs to be worked on, and you've seen it yourself, it's easy for you to write a report. Okay, we're going to get your child to this level, or you're going to get your child to an extremely good level that's very close to their academy in the next 4 or 5 sessions, because we're going to work on a lot of your turning, your passing, your shooting. That is how you're supposed to identify what needs to be worked on and get on a task or get on a pathway to working on it. That's the first thing you want to do in your one-to-one sessions. So you've gathered information and you've fed back that information to that client or that player's support network. And now you're going to challenge them to improve on what needs to be worked on. So let's take improved shooting, for instance, shooting accuracy. We're going to look at challenge level. That's what we're going to go next. So let's call this topic challenge level. Now, if you have a child or a player that is about 5 yards from the goal line, shooting constantly for about 10 minutes, unless that child really needs a lot of work on their ball striking, that's not going to challenge them. If you have them about 20 yards from the goal line, trying to tell them to hit the top corner with their left foot, that's going to be too much of a challenge. So where I'm trying to go with this is you need challenge balance. You need a balance in your challenge, yeah? So you might put them on a task and you might judge it out of 10. So you might say, okay, try to do this task 10 times out of 10. So try to do this task 10 times, So you might put them 10 yards from goal. And you might give them a small target and a goal. It might just be a corner or another football. You say, try hit this goal, try hit this football with a strike of your laces. If they can do it 5 to 6 times out of 10, I think your balance levels are pretty well. If it's 10 times out of 10, you might push them further back. If it's like twice out of 10, you might push them a little bit forward. So you're going to get a good challenge balance level. That's what you want to do. Another thing I want to talk about challenges as well is, that's what you do as a coach, and that's what you're expected to see as a parent as well, how high the challenge level is. Now, I know in my sessions, the challenge levels are pretty high, so I know that I want my players to improve very quickly, so I'll put them up really high in terms of, if I ask you to do a task out of 10 times, you might get it 3 times. I'll continue to do it until you go again, you get better, if that makes sense. But I know that psychologically people want to see success. So what we do sometimes as well is drop the challenge level and make it a little bit easier, so you get your 6s and 7s out of 10, of course. If you're getting 10 out of 10, I think it's too easy. I need to raise the standards, raise the levels. And that's why I don't do certain things, but we'll get to them shortly. We'll get to them soon. Another thing you want to consider is intensity. Intensity for me is key in terms of, that's a must get in a session. So what I'm trying to say is, if that coach, for instance, in your one-to-one session hasn't exactly pinpointed what you needed to get, which I think is key, at least get some sort of intensity. The worst thing you can do in a session is that coach hasn't pinpointed anything you've got in your one-to-one session, and your child hasn't been challenged in their intensity until they haven't worked hard, the session's been too easy, they're gone home and they're still running up and down, they've got lots of energy, they're not tired at all. I think when the parent says to you, oh my gosh, my child's sweating, it's really, really intense, so they worked hard, at least there's going to be some sort of improvement in their fitness, some sort of improvement in their intensity, some sort of improvement in their work rate. So I think intensity is one of the first things you want to get. Fitness is another thing you want to get, of course, in your one-to-one sessions, because of course one-to-one sessions are more intense and there's more detailed there. With a good one-to-one session, you're bound to get fitter as well. So intensity is key. And I always say fitness. When you're fitter than your opposition, your fitness is improved, you're 25% the way there of getting better than them or being better than them in a game situation. So fitness is key. I think that's another must get in a one-to-one session. Now, there can be some sessions where they're quite slow. Some sessions I've been asked, Kieran, can you turn down the fitness level or the intensity level, because we've got a game the next day, we've got an early wake up, we've got a game all the way in the Midlands and we're traveling from South London. So challenge level and intensity level is key. But for a beginner whose fitness needs to improve, I always say try to raise the fitness and intensity standards so they get better, because when you go to academies and the top teams and the elite grassroots teams, the teams are quite fit there, they're quite intense. So yeah, let's think about challenge level and intensity level. One last thing I want to talk about, which is a bonus, so you don't have to expect it, but it's a bonus, and a big bonus, is seeing something in a player that player or parent didn't see in themselves. So for instance, I remember I had a boy come from a team, a quite popular team, and they're in the B team, but they're quite sharp, they're really sharp, their feet are quick, and they've got a really good shot that a lot of other players can do, not a lot of players can execute. And I said to myself, if I coach that player for 4, 5, 6 months, they're going to be at the top. They're going to be at a Cat 1 Academy easily. I don't know why this team hasn't identified this. I don't know why no one's identified this in this player, because they've been to quite a few teams. So I think it's key for a coach to see something in a player, identify a talent in a player that a player hasn't seen themselves or that the parent hasn't seen. And when I let the parent know in their report that, do you know what, your son can actually do, is really sharp, really hungry, got quick, decent feet, works really hard, has got a really good bending shot that I like, that could be deadly in attacking situations. And I spoke to the club as well, and I was like, look, this player is really good at this. Is there a possibility we can test him in your more high-performing teams, in more of elite teams? And I was like, yeah. So I think it's really key as a coach. As I said, remember, it's not to be expected, but it's key as a coach to see something in a player or identify a very good talent, a very good trait in a player that the player hasn't seen themselves, other coaches haven't seen themselves, or the parent haven't seen. So try to identify really good things in players that hasn't been identified before. So in summary, as a parent, you should look forward to and expect good communication from a one-to-one coach who finds solutions to the problems your child has. You should expect a good balanced challenge level that doesn't make the session too easy, but has a good challenge level that has a child thinking about, how can I improve? How can I get better? So what I mean by this is not a 10 out of 10 where they're executing the skill 10 times out of 10. They might execute it 5 times out of 10. They might fail 3, 4, 5 times. That is a good level of challenge. You should expect a high intensity session that's going to improve the fitness of your child. You should expect that coach to know your child now, know what they enjoy, and implement what they enjoy in the session If they enjoy ball striking, after the ball mastery set, get a shot off. If they enjoy going against the time, okay, how quickly can you get there and back? Can you do it under 10 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds? It's a bonus to get a coach who can identify something particular in that child that nobody else can identify. That's a bonus. It's not an expectation, it's a bonus. And of course, you should expect your child to use what they're learning in their one-to-one sessions and implement them into their matches. You should see a difference in their match performance. Thank you very much for your time. I've been Coach Kieran Allen Roper. Keep watching, keep learning, keep enjoying the guides. Peace.